Greetings and salutations, my lovelies. Don't mind the blanket. It's fine. It's fine. Welcome and welcome back to the channel. My name is Kamaria. On this channel, Mondays, we do journaling. Fridays, we talk about books. Today is Friday. So, let's talk about the book that put me into a week-long reading slump. After I read this book, I could not read anything for a long time. That book is At Dark, I Become Loathsome by Eric LaRocca. Let's talk about it. I have heard about Eric LaRocca for a while. A lot of the people I follow who like horror read from him. And they usually write short stories. And if you didn't know, Eric LaRocca is a non-binary author. Pronouns are he, they, so I'm probably going to use them interchangeably because that's what they feel comfortable with. That's what's on their, profile, whatever. Let me just read the synopsis and then we can talk about the contents. At dark, I become loathsome, a grim yet gentle, horrifying yet hopeful, intense tale of death, trauma, and love. If you are reading this, you've likely thought that the world would be better without you in it. A single line of text glowing in the darkness of the internet, written by Ashley Luton, who has often thought the same and worse in the years since his wife died and young son disappeared. But the peace of the grave is not for him. It's for those he can help. Ashley has constructed a peculiar ritual for those whose desire to die is at war with their yearning to live a better life. Struggling to overcome his own endless grief one night, Ashley finds connection with Jinx, a potential candidate for Ashley's next ritual, who spins a tale both revolting and fascinating. Thus begins a relationship that traps the two men in an ever-tightening spiral of painful revelations, where long-hidden secrets are dragged, kicking and screaming, into the light. Only through pain can we find healing. Only through death can we find a new life. From now on, there will be spoilers, so if you still want to read this book, don't watch the rest of this. So basically, the main character, there's so many things about this book that I hate. So many things about this book that I hate. We're going to talk about some of them. So from the synopsis, you think, okay, there's something going on. He's a little dark. He's a little twisty. He's dealing with grief. There's a ritual, and he gets involved with this guy. I'll tell you right now that his relationship with the guy is like maybe this much of the book. It's so, it's not, listen. We are in the main character's head a lot. And he's going through some stuff. Not only is he suffering from I'm a tragic queer, which not like haven't beaten that trope to death, but he wasn't raised around people who are welcoming, so he had to push down his queerness. So he's troubled and a tortured gay or a tortured bisexual, whatever. Okay. But he was married with a kid. His wife died of cancer. And so he was going through it. His young child, who through these memories and through hallucinations, you find out was probably effeminate, and so he didn't treat his son very well because he himself was a repressed gay. He thought his son was probably gay. So he was not very nice to his son. So then his wife dies. He's going through some stuff. He decides one day he's going to go to the grocery store. He's with his kid. He leaves his credit card at the register and leaves his kid outside of the store. His 7-year-old kid alone. And then, oh no, he comes back and his kid is gone. One, you can tell that the author doesn't have children. You can tell the author doesn't have children just by that fact alone. Because as a parent, you would never leave your 7-year-old without them being in eyesight, okay? Especially not nowadays in these times. Stranger danger. We're all helicopter parents because they got freaking pedophiles on a freaking website and you could look. Anyway, that's just unrealistic. Not to say that there aren't negligent parents out there, but so that at first was like, okay, that's not realistic, so let's go. Gotta suspend all my disbelief for this one. So anyway, so then his kid gets disappeared and here we are, right? So the ritual, spoiler alert, the ritual is he buries people. He digs them back up and it gives them this kind of near-death experience and whatever. And there are so many parts of the ritual. He has to wash them. They have to wear certain clothing and they have to make a last will and testament. He makes them sign paperwork. But the first description we have of this man, if I can find it because I didn't tab and I'm not prepared, is he literally feels like a monster on the inside, so he has to make himself look like a monster on the outside. I'm sure that some of my clients expect me to behave a certain way given the outlandishness of my appearance. The large metal piercings embellishing my nostrils and bee-stung lips, my forehead with its silver horn implants, my jewel-decorated ears bent and reshaped to resemble the ears of an elf. At night, I become guilty of crimes I haven't committed. I've become a caricature of my former self, a creature to be persecuted, loathed, reviled, detested. At nighttime, I am something to be tortured until condemned, someone completely and forever misunderstood. First of all, people who get body modifications aren't monsters. I'll repeat it again. People who get body modifications aren't monsters. Yes, are there people who do things to their bodies that society would say is attention seeking or because they had a whatever childhood, whatever. There are so many different cultures across our world that do scarification and so many things as a part of their culture. And to say, I'm a monster and I do horrible things because I have horns is just, and piercings. I'm just like, what decade are we in? Where we like, when we think that people who have tattoos or piercings are grotesque and monsters and they must be deviant because they have a body modification. It's 2025. First big thing, because I was just like, well, that's just disrespectful to people who are into body modifications. Because it's a form of expression. It has nothing to do with being a monster. And you're literally adding into the stereotype that people who get body modifications are less than or ugly or like, what the hell? Okay? Anyway, so then he just continues to go on about how horrible he is, and it just repeats the title over and over in like a chorus type Greek tragedy effect where they repeat the same thing. But it got old real fast to the point where I would just keep skipping it because I'm like, we get it. You're going through some stuff. And instead of getting therapy, you're just in your head monologuing about how you're a monster and you do all these horrible things. Like he has hallucinations where he's talking to his dead wife and his son, even though he thinks he's not dead. Then he buries people and digs them up. And then he comes across this guy, the guy from the synopsis, and the guy just kind of like, oh, I've been tracking you down. I've been following you. Um, can I tell you a story? And full disclosure, I started reading the story within a story, and it was disgusting to the point where, okay, like, I get it. This is, nah, I can't. I can't. So I skipped it. I literally skipped it. And also, I watched one of my friends' videos who like told me in detail what was going on in the story. So I felt okay. Okay, I was like, okay, let me just get past this part. So, because maybe there's something redeemable. Maybe that story had a purpose. Maybe this book has a purpose. So I read just a few pages of the story within a story that this guy is telling our main character, and but I was like, you know what? That's just a story within a story. Maybe, something will happen that makes this worth my time. And I kept reading, right? There are so many things in my life that I regret. Time I cannot get back. Reading this book was one of those things. I do feel like when people, authors who are used to writing short stories, try to write novels, it doesn't always translate and they hit a few bumps in the road before they can kind of get their stride and figure out the formula. And I think this is one of LaRocca's, if I'm not mistaken, first novels outside of short stories, because there's a couple of other short stories in here. And I feel like the short story themselves, even if they're gross, are more compelling and intense than this whole book combined. Okay? But I do feel like this book suffered between what it didn't know what it wanted to be, because I think the author just wanted to tell short stories, but okay, let's put it in a novel. So I have these stories that I'm going to try to work into this overarching story, but they make no sense. But if you take there are a couple of short stories in here on their own are way more impactful. They make more sense. Even if they're gross and disgusting, at least like by themselves, they hold more weight than this whole book. And not to mention, this guy, and it's not like I make any money off these videos, so, I'm not going to get demonetized or anything. But, like, the main character literally will get aroused at really nasty, horrible things, like that story that this guy tells him that's, like, full of really murder, assault, body horror, I guess. And he was like, homeboy gets aroused a lot. Okay. And this is, okay, that's what I have a problem with a lot. I try to give everybody a chance when I'm reading. I do have a pretty good idea of what my reading taste is, and I curate accordingly. But this, is like, oh, okay, non-binary queer author, horror, okay, let's go. And it wasn't that. Okay? It wasn't that. This main character is just going through some things. He has a lot of issues, and we're in his head so much. And his interaction with this guy isn't even, it takes maybe a chapter of the book, if I'm being honest. You have the first introduction where he tells that horrible story, and then a little bit at the end. And everything else in between is just not what was advertised, okay? Because you meet his clients that he buries and digs up. And there's one that he decides to not dig up, and he literally kills her. And he's like, oh, well, I'm, the whole point of the ritual was for them to get dug up and have this revelation, right? But this one, he's like, nah, she's too far gone. She just needs to stay in there. And then he wakes up and kind of goes about his business, but kind of changes his mind later on. And it's like, homie, you buried her. It's been 2 days. She's dead. And then there are so many things, like plot holes that don't make sense of the plot line, because he talks to the cops who are in charge of his son's disappearance case. And they're like, oh, we found clothing and blood in the desert. Blood in the desert. It's sand. It would have gone down. But first the guy says his kid has been gone for a year. Then it was 2 years. Disappeared. Then he starts going on about how, if he were alive right now, we'd be looking at high schools. His kid was taken when he was 7 or 8. If it's only been a couple of years, you do not look at high schools when your kid is 10. You don't. So there's just so many kind of inconsistencies in the plot. And then the cop comes and talks to him. Is like, hey, we found clothes and some blood. So he kind of goes cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, because he had this hope that his son was just alive out there somewhere. And maybe because I treated him like crap because I am a self-hating gay and he's probably gay, he's just not coming home because I was a bad dad. And then the cop's like, nah, he's probably dead, homie. And then that's when he kills his next client that he was supposed to dig up, because he's like, there's no hope. My hope is gone. So your hope has to be gone too. And it's like, and then he goes and he hangs out with this guy. And spoiler alert, the guy he was talking to that he's semi-attracted to always gets aroused around, even though he tells all these really gross stories, ends up being the guy who took and molested his kid. And I'm just sitting here like, oh, is that supposed to be a plot twist? Because that part happens literally here. This is the rest of the book. We get to that part here. The very last 30 pages. Here. And I didn't even tell you what happens in this middle part. So let me backtrack a little. So after he kills the old lady and he's supposed to go meet this other dude, he's literally just thinking before he meets this guy in person, because he met him before when he told him that girl story, like in a chat room, in an email or whatever, just in the internet. He goes and he kills this old lady in the ritual. Just buries her, and even though he promised to dig her up, he literally drives away. It's like, I'm gonna go home and take a nap because there's no hope, so she deserves to die. Goes home, and he wakes up and he's just minding his own business, whatever, eating breakfast, eating a rotten apple or whatever. And then he just like, oh, and then this reminds me of this story, or this like blog I came across where this husband was in love with his husband. This guy was in love with his husband's cancer. And literally for so many pages, of this book was talking about this guy who finds out his husband has cancer, and he becomes attracted to his husband's cancer and purposely keeps his husband sick because he's attracted to his cancer. And then finally, when his husband like cuts out the cancer, he divorces him. And the main character just goes on and on and on and on about how much this guy fascinates him. And maybe I'm just attracted to darkness. And so I see what like the author was trying to do, like to equate the two things. But it's like, why are you putting so much energy into introducing characters? And it's like chapters long, like pages, 40 pages long, talking about a couple that the main character read in a blog and how it's affected his life so much. It's like, what does this have to do with the actual story besides a tiny little thread of I'm attracted to the darkness or whatever? And so that's why I get boners when I hear books about freaking body horror and sexual assault. Like, so fast forward through that, because we're literally just reading about this husband and who's attracted to his partner's cancer for 40 pages. And then he goes and meets that guy and finds out that he molested and killed his son. And he doesn't do anything about it. This guy was literally agreeing to do the ritual. He buries him. And right when this guy, he's literally putting the dirt on the coffin, and the guy's like, oh, hey, I know what happened to your son. Okay, bye. And then so the guy's like, has to dig him back up. And so he's like, because he had already from the jump decided that he was going to be a serial killer and just bury everybody. And so this guy's like, I know what happened about your son. And so he's like, oh, well, now I got to dig him up because I got to find out what happened to my son. What do you mean? So he had already decided to become a serial killer, and that just got thrown out the window. And so he digs the guy up, and the guy's like, yeah, I kidnapped your son. He thought he was transgender, born in the wrong body. You were a horrible dad. And then I did stuff to him and killed him. So you're dark and twisty inside, so you should kill me. I can't do it myself. But I need to be unalived. And our main character is like, no, that's what you want me to do. I'm going to let you live with your misery, and walks away from him. Listen, as a parent, you do anything to my child, it's lights out for you. I don't care if it's what you wanted me to do. It is lights out for you. My child, my, I grew that person's organs. Like, do not mess with me. Do not mess with my child. No. So the whole book talks about how he's a monster and he looks like this and he buries people and he's talking to hallucinations of his dead wife and all of these weird, horrible things. He kills an old lady because he thought, oh, there's no hope for her. She's just miserable. I'm setting her free. And then the person who literally took your child did horrible stuff to them. And you're just going to be like, no, bye. So how the whole time, this whole book, he's talking about how he's a monster. He's grotesque. He's got horns. I'm the dog. When it's nighttime, I turn into this. I'm going to read stories on the internet about other weird, gross people. I'm going to actually unalive somebody. But when push came to shove, you're not going to do anything about your own child's murderer? After they were all lusty with each other too, which is really also really gross. The thing is, usually I have this thing where my brain tells me, okay, DNF. And I just couldn't stop reading it. But like not in a good way. Like this book had no purpose. It was just gross to be gross. And I get that people have different psyches and they work through things differently, but I personally think that there shouldn't just be grotesque things. This was just a walking fetish. It's like, I don't need to read how many times this guy gets aroused over questionable things. And you're in his head all the time. And I was like, oh, this is the bad place. Like, what? And I would understand if there was a reason for all that stuff, but I just don't believe in putting stuff in books for shock value. Because body horror is one thing, but this, for me, had no overarching theme, overarching purpose. Like, what was it trying to say? Like, really, though, what was this book trying to say with all of the stuff I just told you? Besides the fact that people who do body modifications are horrible monster people. And this is also an overarching kind of thing I've realized lately in how we're going with publishing. It's like, okay, are we just going to publish stuff that you know is going to shock people? So just for the shock value alone, but there's like nothing of substance in here. And it also just calls into question, because like personally, it is really hard for me to read books written by, I will say, people who are assigned male at birth. Let's just put it that way. There's only so many eggplants I can deal with if we're not having fun, happy times. Like this is coming from somebody who reads monster smut. A lot of times I find, like, when I read books by people who are assigned male at birth, I I don't get it. Maybe I'm not supposed to get it. I'm trying. I don't want to be a generalized person that any man who writes a book, it's going to be trash, because I know that's not true. But you do just have reoccurring things. I don't, just very phallic. And maybe, hey, there are sometimes I wake up and wish I had that too. I get it. But to be so obsessed with a body part, to write so many scenes about that body part. Anyway, hard pass. Until the next time I'm traumatized. Have a good day.